Hi there everybody. Right, okay, so today we're going to look at solving one-step inequalities. Alright, it's a very, very similar process to solving one-step equations. I suppose the only difference here is that you've got an inequality and potentially it might be double-sided, but we're going to come together as we kind of go through the process. Alright, so let's have a look in terms of what we need to do. So like I said, inequalities are solved like normal equations, but we just need to keep an eye on the inequality and what impact it potentially does as we move things around. Alright, so it mentions here about multiplying or dividing by a negative number, then you must flip the inequality. Now that's an important one to kind of retain and try and remember. And as we do it, you'll see it happening. All right, if I have to divide by a negative, then the inequality is going to flip. Okay, we'll see that in a second. All right, so let's start with a basic one. So we've got x plus 3 is greater than 7. All right, so like any kind of equation, if I said x plus 3 equal to 7, we'd do the inverse operation of the plus 3 and take it across to be minus. All right, so if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about in terms of the inverse operation and on solving one-step equations, then please look at the video in relation to solving one-step equations. It's going to help you a little bit. Okay, so the inverse of plus 3 is minus 3, so the 3 is going to go across to the other side and become negative, and therefore so we're going to simplify the 7 minus 3, so x is going to be bigger than 4. And what you'll notice is that the inequality for this one, it just stays exactly the same place. All right, a little bit like an equal, but obviously what people tend to do, and this is what you've got to try and avoid, if you decide to treat it like an equation, which is what most people will do, is that you've got to remember that the inequality must be as part of your answer. All right, and the amount of times people just leave it as equals, but of course we're not talking about an equation, we're talking about an inequality, solving an inequation if you wish. All right, but you'll ultimately make sure you kind of put that in. All right, so it'll be the same for us for a process for something times something. Well, I'm still going to do the inverse operation, so I'm going to divide by 4, which is 24 divided by 4, and again you'll notice the inequality stays exactly as it is, and then we deal with numbers. So 24 divided by 4 is going to be 6. All right. This is the one we might have mentioned at the outset, so this is the one you've got to be very, very careful of. All right. If I decide to divide by 3, then that's going to give me 10. All right, but that's going to leave me with minus y, and of course I can't have that. So what I could do is rearrange this to make the minus 3y onto this side and a 30 on this side. But what that will do is effectively it'll put the 3y at the open bit and the 30 at the pointy bit if I swap them over and change the signs. So what you do is you divide by the negative 3. All right, so if I divide by minus 3, that is the right thing to do. So 30 divided by minus 3. But what happens to the inequality is it flips over. It absolutely changes. All right, so that's the thing that we mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, and that's what you've got to take away from this. All right, so again, thinking about exam, think about where they might try and trip you up. Think about making sure that you understand everything. Now, if you understand how to solve equations, this shouldn't be a problem. But what you've got to watch out for, if you end up having to divide by a negative, then the inequality sign has to kind of flip over. Okay, so you're going to have y is bigger than minus 10. Okay, right. Two-step inequalities is I suppose it makes sense that this is going to be the same thing as a two-step equation, but with the inequality in there. All right, so same as before. If you haven't looked at solving two-step equations, please make sure you do that first and then come back to this. But I will go through it. I will kind of remind you. So if I've got 2x plus 5, it is bigger than 13. Then the plus 5 is going to come across and go to a minus. All right, so the inverse of that one is the 5. And then simplify it. And then, of course, we've got 2x is greater than 8. So we need to divide both sides by 2. And therefore, we can have x is bigger than 4. All right, so you've got two things to do, hence the 2 steps. Okay. Right, so here, and hopefully this jumps out here based on what I said about a minute ago. You've got minus 3x minus 1 is bigger than 17. So let's deal with the minus 1 first. So let's take the minus 1 across and make it a plus. So minus 3x is bigger than 18 when we deal with that one. And at this point, because of the minus 3x, we're going to have to divide by minus 3, and that means your inequality is going to flip over. Okay, so divide by minus 3, and hopefully you can see that happening. There you go. All right, so divide by minus 3, and inequality changes. Well, 18 divided by 3 is 6, but of course you've got a negative 6 there because it's positive divided by negative. All right, they're two steps. Okay, so one step and two step, very much like equations. Key thing to remember, if you have to divide by a negative, what that does to the inequality sign. All right. The final part of this lesson is about double inequalities, and that is that is slightly different to what you've kind of seen before. All right, because what you've got is you've got a variable and then two things either side. Here you have it. So you've got 5 is less than x minus 2, which is less than or equal to 9. So it's in between the two values. All right. So how we tackle these is basically we'll do the inverse of what's happening in the middle. All right. So if I have to add 2, then I start with fine. I'm going to have to add 2, but then I'm going to have to add 2 to both parts of it effectively. So I can't just do it just to the left hand side or the right hand side. I've got to do it to all of it. All right. So if I add 2 to the middle to get rid of the minus 2, then I have to add it to the two bits left and right as well. Okay. So there you can see it. So I've added 2 to the middle to get rid of the minus 2, and therefore I've added 2 to both of those two as well. All right. So when I write that again, my x is between 7 and 11. All right. So it's when I've got double inequality, you normally have an x in between two values. Okay. So you just treat the middle like you would do any equation, but whatever you do to it, you have to do it to both sides. Okay. So looking at this one, and again, you'll notice straight away, well, that I'm trying to throw a curveball in for you, is that you've got a minus 4 in there, a minus 4x, all right? And it's minus 4 times x. So that means I need to divide by minus 4, all right? Well, that means I'm going to divide both sides by minus 4. But what happens to the inequalities when I divide by a minus? They're all going to flip over, okay? So when I divide by minus 4, you can see that it's all written out there. So you've got this bit on the left-hand side where minus 4 divided by minus 4. You've got the bit on the right-hand side, which is 12 divided by minus 4. And when I've divided by that by minus 4, obviously it's become x. But these two signs have flips over as well. All right, so right now, and again, so minus 4 divided by minus 4 is 1. 12 divided by minus 4 is minus 3. And my x value in the middle, and of course you'll notice my inequality signs have flipped over, which they needed to do. All right, so be very, very careful with what you're doing and watch out for those negatives, okay? All right. If you need some practice on this one, well, please visit maths-school.co.uk. As always, there's a link at the bottom of the page for you to kind of get there. You know, please feel free to kind of visit the video and look at it all over again to remind you. All right. Thanks for listening.